Hey folks, and welcome to a simple homemade pizza for complete beginners featuring me, Chef Ramsey. Alright folks, today we're doing my first ever kind of cooking video. Look, I am not a professional chef in any regard. The reason I'm doing this is because obviously I have kind of like the condition with long COVID where everything smells and tastes bad. So I kind of been on a bit of a journey to learn to cook. And obviously the first thing you learn to cook is pizza. I'm a newbie at this, anybody can do this. We'll see how they go, we'll see how they'll turn out. Like and comment for me trying something different. Okay, step one, get your water temperature between 110 and 115. I think that's about 37. Now your measurements might be different. The recipe I'm using has 530 milliliters. I'm going to add in 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 tablespoon of active dry yeast. This packet has about 8 grams. I'm going to mix that all together and I'm going to let it sit, and you'll notice the little process that happens where the yeast is alive. You can see it bubbling and forming. If yours isn't doing that, try again. Next, add your flour. It can be bread flour, 00 flour, any's fine really. And then you're going to add in that mixture. Now if you have a fancy stand mixture, you can do this a lot more professionally. I'm just putting it in a bowl and I'm stirring it, and I'm adding in the olive oil, which is about 2 tablespoons, 30 milliliters. If you're finding it too oily, then you can add a bit of flour. It's fine. So you're going to stir the mixture and it's going to slowly come together. And it's going to form kind of a dough. Try get as much as you can in the bowl, and then obviously I'm going to flour the surface so it's movable. Now you can begin to knead this, or you can do this technique which I've seen in videos. It is a fold and slap, so you kind of slap it down. It's going to be hard to use, but the more you mix with it and the more you sort of play with it, it will become easier to handle. So you kind of slap and fold over. That gets air into it, but you can see I'm showing you how tough the mixture is to work with. Obviously this is quite a wet, oily dough. Again, the more and more you work with it, it becomes easier, but do note, make sure you get all of the bits in. I was noticing a bit of shall we say stirred in flour, so I did a bit of kneading, a bit of stretching, a bit of anything to get it kind of going, and eventually it becomes smooth like so. Now for this part I cut it into 3 roughly sized pieces and put them into oiled containers. Now here, slow down, I used far too much oil and the containers were a bit small. I'd actually just purchased these containers, so I wanted to try them, but they were a little bit small, so put them in a container that fits, a little bit less oil, and you'll be good to go, like so. Now this is a better example. This is in a bigger bowl, it's less oily, plenty of room to sort of grow and expand. Then you're going to go ahead and cover those doughs and leave them at room temperature. I leave them for an hour and a half. So whilst we're waiting for that, let's have a look at the sauce. So we're going to be using oregano, crushed chili flakes, tomatoes, olive oil, bit of sugar, basil if you want, or whatever herbs you want to put in it. It's really up to you. It's your sauce, your style. So in here, I'm going to use a can of crushed tomatoes. Anything tinned has already been kind of cooked, so you don't need to cook the sauce until it goes on the pizza. Sugar to get through some of the acidity. Put in your herbs, your spices, and a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of sugar, like I said, and mix it all up. Here, just to get it going and have a more of a smoother sauce, I'm going to blend it. But I do like a little bit of texture in my pizzas, so I don't completely make it totally smooth. That's kind of fine for me. And yeah, you can see like the herbs are kind of mixed in. And I was like, yeah, I probably want a little bit more than that, a little bit more kick. So I added a little bit more in, some more oregano, a little bit more basil, because I figured I've made quite a lot here. Yeah, so I'm going to use this as a bit of a pasta sauce as well. Then you're just going to put it into a tub and bung it into the fridge, and then that's good to go. The sauce is really simple to make. It's the easiest component to make, and it's super easy to adjust, obviously. Now, whilst you're waiting, you can prepare your extras for your pizza, whether you've got meat, you want to do a different sauce, some cheese, peppers, whatever. And if you're doing the quick style pizza, you can go ahead and start to preheat your stone. But waiting longer is obviously better. The longer the dough ferments, the better it will be. At this point, I was like, right, I'm just going to chop up some peppers, going to grate some cheese, and get that in a bowl, vegetarian friendly. So yeah, wash the peppers, just going to chop them. By the way, sharp knives are obviously going to be way less painful, but we don't really have any. So yeah, I need to improve on that. But yeah, just chop the peppers up. I like them quite chunky, so I go from quite chunky. And I just put them in a bowl and put them in the fridge so I can just leave them to the side. And I grated some cheese, some mozzarella, and some Monterey Jack. Or you can just buy just some pre-shredded mozzarella, which won't be as good, but it's basically neither here nor there. Okay, so it's dough time now, and as you can see, they've risen a lot. So this is me 1.5 hours later regretting putting it in a smaller pot and using too much oil. So you can knead it back down a little and let it re-rise. You can add some flour in here, knead it back in and let it re-rise. Or if you just want to knead it down a tiny bit, put it in the fridge for 1 to 3 days. That would be best, and let it slowly rise. That will give you the greatest taste, all that good stuff. But it doesn't need to be in the fridge for 3 days. You know, this can be done in 2 hours. There wasn't enough salt in my dough, and they over sort of rose too early. It wasn't the best, so do get your measurements right or it won't quite be right. And I want you to learn from these mistakes, because obviously it's a beginning recipe. So that's the whole point, right? You make mistakes, you learn. And yes, if I was to repeat it, bigger bowl, like so, with less oil, and it would turn out looking a lot more pizza-like, like so. So yes, there are mistakes. We're here to learn. So if you have left them in the fridge for a day or two, take them out, bring them back to room temperature for 2 to 4 hours, and now you can go ahead and preheat your oven for 250 with that stone inside. Or you can use a tray upside down if you want, or you can just cook it on a tray if you don't want to bother with the whole messy dough situation. So there's 3 examples here. This dough that I made slides really well off the peel with a little bit of semolina. Has a lot more structure. It slides off the peel, like I said, but it's not quite stretchy. The dough just wasn't quite right. The gluten hasn't formed. I've not given it long enough to come back to room temperature, but that is kind of the idea of what we're doing. You can also, by the way, if you haven't got semolina flour, just put some regular flour and some salt just to kind of let it slide a little bit. And, you know, this is attempt 1. So you're looking for something in between these 3 attempts. So this is like kind of attempt 1. Again, go ahead and put your ingredients on, put your sauce on that you made, put your peppers, you know, whatever you want to throw on it, you do you. It slides in really, really well. But the actual dough wasn't the best, but it still came out like a pizza, and that's the whole point, right? Even if you kind of mess up, it's going to come out like a pizza, as long as if you've roughly got all the measurements right and you've tried your best. So the second attempt, this is probably the best one. This is how it should look. It kind of stretches, it's light, but it's strong. Now, because this was a really decent dough, I decided to put this on a baking tray, and then you can just put your ingredients on, your sauce, your cheese, and then what you can do is just simply whack it in the oven, and it will rise up to be kind of like one of those big, what they call grandma style pizzas, which you can then just slice into squares. This was probably my best attempt. So this one came out great. And if there's a tip, if you have got a bit of a thicker dough, you can just put some sauce onto it to protect it and pre-cook it. Then after it's been cooking a while, add your toppings on, because if you just whack it in the oven, all your toppings and your sauce and your cheese will get burnt and the dough won't be done. And that's kind of how it turned out. This is the third example, which is like the bad example. So this one is way too oily, way too wet. And this was one that I was trying to make one of these really, really high moisture doughs, which I've not done before, and it just didn't go well. So you're aiming for it to look like in between this one, in between the tray one, and in between the one that slides nicely. Okay, so I thought I'd include my failings so you can learn. Example number 4, like this one. So one day you actually get a good batch, it stretches, you bake it in a tray, you put a bit of fresh mozzarella on it, you put some salami and some chili, and everyone eats it. And there's absolutely no pictures of it. So the sign of a good pizza dough is when there are no pictures of it. So that was kind of my example recipe for making pizzas. It's super simple. Grated cheese, sauce, a little bit of mozzarella. And by the way, if you want that extra finish, you can just grill it. The last 5 minutes of the pizza, take it out of the oven and grill it to give it that crispy top. And yeah, you can see that it comes out really, really nicely. And it's such a simple recipe. I'll leave it in the description. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was a fun little video. Do like, comment and subscribe. Full recipe is in the description. Give it a go. Join the Discord. Post your attempts inside of the food section. Let's see your attempt. I enjoyed this. It's still a process. Like you say, your first pizza ain't going to be the best. It's going to be a slow process. You're going to have some ones that fail, some ones that come out really good. Eventually, you're going to find your own little tweaks and tips to get it working. But hopefully this helped. Thanks very much. Peace.